caused massive economic collapse, widespread panic, and unprecedented loss of life. But for the elites, this is not chaos, it is order through destruction. As prophesied in their own doctrine of order out of chaos, as written by Albert Pike, who was a 33rd degree Freemason, a nuclear holocaust would create the necessary conditions for them to unveil their global government system, digital control grid, and transhumanist agenda. Transhumanist agenda. Well, like I said, at the highest level of this proxy war, we're really fighting a war with negative invasive alien AI, right? So the war would also provide cover for the rolling out of global martial law, digital currency systems, biometric surveillance. This is what they wanted, but it's not going to happen thanks to the alliance. And an AI-driven enforcement technology infrastructure, an AI-driven enforcement infrastructure. But fortunately, guys, there is a counter movement operating behind the scenes known as the Earth Alliance, who are the descendants of the Great White Brotherhood, the Order of Melchizedek, often referred to as the Whiteheads in modern times, comprised of positive functions within global militaries, intelligence agencies, and even elements of the spacefaring Galactic Alliance. These guardians are actively working to nullify the dark agenda. The Whiteheads are fully aware of the elite's long-standing plan to use Israel and Iran as sacrificial pawns in a larger game. They've intercepted communications, dismantled false flag operations, and there have been many, by the way, that would have been worse than what happened on September 11, 2001. Since 2020, you could say that the Whiteheads have been dismantling false flag operations, intercepting communications, thanks to Space Force, and most importantly, neutralizing nuclear assets that were intended to be used to escalate the conflict beyond the point of no return. Several nuclear launch attempts, both by rogue factions in Iran and hidden operatives in Israel, have already been thwarted through advanced off-world technology, and this is why the Whiteheads are in control, because they do have access to galactic technology and quantum surveillance. So this is not merely a battle between nations; it is a war between timelines. That's right, guys. This is a timeline war, okay, between those who serve domination through fear and those who protect humanity's right to evolve freely. The conflict between Israel and Iran is a smokescreen. Again, the real war is a spiritual and cosmic struggle for the soul of humanity and the earth. So the Whiteheads, backed by benevolent extraterrestrial allies and higher dimensional forces, are ensuring that humanity does not descend into self-destruction and does not descend into transhumanism. Their goal is not only to prevent nuclear war, but to help awaken the global population to the truth that they have been manipulated, deceived, and used as pawns by ancient powers hiding behind modern institutions. So, what the world sees as conflict between Israel and Iran is in truth a scripted drama, a proxy war played out under orders from elite bloodlines determined to trigger a global reset through war. But their plans are being systematically dismantled by the Whiteheads and their allies. Humanity stands at the brink not of annihilation, but of awakening. And so the truth is now surfacing. The war will not be won through missiles or politics, but through collective awakening and the dismantling of the control systems that pit brother against brother, nation against nation. The people of Israel and Iran do not hate each other. It's the governments that are making it so. It's the elites that do. And soon their empire of lies will fall. Okay, so this is an ancient blueprint for control. We could trace this conflict all the way back to biblical times. So the seeds of this conflict were actually sowed in ancient times. They were sown in ancient times by powerful bloodlines that can be traced back to the descendants of Cain and Nimrod. You know, figures that are normally associated as rebels against the divine order or as rebels against God. and the creation of false, idol-based civilizations, which gave birth to what we call today organized religions. These descendants infiltrated key regions of spiritual significance, including the lands that would become modern day Israel and Iran, because back then Iran was known as Persia. It was Persia. So their strategy was simple yet sinister. Divide the sons of Abraham, Isaac and Ishmael, right? The real sons of Abraham, or let's just call the real Israelites. And yes, the real descendants of Isaac and Ishmael is what the elites have always considered human cattle. They use the word goyim as described in my book, The Secret Government Invisible Architects. So they've always been about creating a state of suffering for the true descendants of Israel and Isaac, which, by the way, are not living in Israel or in Iran. They're actually spread out worldwide, and most of them, according to Valiant Thor, have actually concentrated here in the United States. So the real descendants of the original Israelites are spread out geographically, right? And most of them are concentrated here in America. So by infiltrating the religious, political, and cultural structures of both regions, we're talking about the Brotherhood of the Snake, the Cabal ensured that both Israelis and Palestinians, and by extension Iran, as a major Shia power backing Palestinian resistance that would be caught in a web of unresolved tension. So they installed secret societies, manipulated royal bloodlines, and embedded operatives in both camps, both in Israel and Iran, to steer conflict, distort faith, and weaponize trauma. Israel became a geopolitical outpost for the Western-backed elites, while Iran was turned into an axis of resistance conveniently portrayed as a threat to justify endless war. The Cabal's greatest triumph was convincing the world that the conflict between Israel and Iran is rooted purely in religion, all right, or territorial ambition, which is a lie, In reality, both nations have been puppeteered by the same hidden hand that could be traceable back to Cain and Nimrod. Israel's creation in 1948 was not only a return to a biblical homeland, it was part of a larger Zionist agenda, okay, influenced by the Rothschild funding and British intelligence design, intended to steer conflict with the surrounding Arab and Persian world. Likewise, the 1979 Iranian Revolution, though it overthrew the Shah, was quickly co-opted by darker elements seeking to turn Iran into a perpetual enemy of the West and Israel. By maintaining both Israel and Iran in a state of permanent alert and mutual hostility, the Cabal created the perfect powder keg. Proxy wars in Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Gaza have served as rehearsal stages for the ultimate confrontation, an apocalyptic war designed to engulf the world in chaos and fear. Well, this is all part of the Luciferian agenda, right? The orchestra